All right, today we're going to talk about classic Land Rovers, specifically Series Land Rovers, and what they're like to own and drive every day. Are they usable in a modern world? We're going to get into it. Stick around. All right, welcome back. Thanks so much for joining me. My name is Paul Masenchik with Autology Motors here in Denia, Spain. And we build a lot of classic Land Rovers for people all over the world. A lot of series trucks, a lot of Defenders, a lot of Range Rover Classics, some Mercedes-Benz Geländewagens, and some other types of vehicles as well. But Series Land Rovers, the originals, they remain very popular, and it's easy to see why. Series trucks are the most iconic and recognizable Land Rovers ever made, and arguably some of the most iconic and recognizable motor vehicles ever made. And their shape is incredibly evocative. It conjures images of far-flung exotic locales and epic adventures, because this is really what Land Rovers were designed and built for. But the question I'm asked constantly by people who are considering a Series Land Rover is, how usable is it in a modern world? I know I love the truck, but can I actually drive it every day? Can I service and maintain it? Are parts readily available? Will it perform in a way that's adequate for modern use? And the answers to these questions are a little bit complicated, but we'll get into them here. I want to set a framework first, which is I'm going to be confining this discussion to Series IIA and Series III Land Rovers. These were the Land Rovers built from the early 1960s through the early 1980s. And the reason is because these are vastly more popular than the earlier trucks. And if you're considering a Series Land Rover, you are almost certainly going to be looking at a Series IIA or a Series III, because at reasonable price points, these are, by far the most common options for people. And although there were two basic chassis styles and a whole bunch of different body configurations, I'm not going to get into the details of those specifically. We're going to talk about series trucks in general, because although they each have their own specific qualities, in general, the driving and ownership experience is similar across all the Series IIA and Series IIIs. So with that in mind, the question I get more than any others, are they reliable? Will they run and drive every day? And I think it's important to put this into perspective. These vehicles are now 4 and 5 decades old, so we don't want to hold them to the standards that we would hold a 2-year-old Toyota RAV4 or something. But in the general context of vintage vehicles and vehicles of this age, are they reliable? And I think the short answer is yes, they're extremely reliable. Remember that the Series Land Rover was designed as a simple, rugged tool to be used in some of the harshest, most inhospitable terrain on Earth and in remote areas of the planet where routine maintenance is not always possible. So where they lack refinement, which we'll get into later, they do have in their DNA a very rugged simplicity that is inherently dependable. There's not a lot going on in a Series Land Rover. There's not much to them. Very simple electrical systems, overbuilt, robust mechanical components, and this sort of agricultural utility, this sort of simple design ethos translates into modern reliability quite well in the way that it translated into reliability back when they were built. If you have a series truck in good condition, it is going to be an extremely dependable and robust companion. Now, I would differentiate here a little bit between the diesels and the petrol engines. In any old 40 or 50-year-old petrol-powered car, there is a lot to go wrong that could cause, for example, a no-start. Spark plugs, ignition wire, coils, distributor, cap and rotor. These things don't exist on the diesels in the same form, and a diesel series truck is going to be substantially more dependable, just simply because there's fewer things to go wrong. A diesel Series Land Rover, by comparison, really only needs compression and fuel to run. Yes, there's a glow plug circuit to get the engine started in cold temperature, but that is a very simple electrical circuit and not prone to failure. And all of the other components that can go wrong in an old petrol car simply don't exist on a vintage diesel. So the series diesels, which is the vast majority of the vehicles we deal with and most of the ones I see, are extraordinarily rugged, dependable vehicles. When you do need to service or repair the vehicle, parts availability for series trucks is extremely good. Fortunately, we live in a small world now where parts suppliers in the United Kingdom, for example, which are some of the biggest in the world, have high stock and can ship worldwide at incredibly reasonable prices in just a couple days. So when you do need things for your series truck, they are readily available and affordable. And perhaps best of all, working on a series truck requires no specialized knowledge of any kind. They are incredibly simple. By and large, everything is accessible, and anyone with even a basic mechanical knowledge will find themselves right at home working on a Series Land Rover. So you have a very simple, rugged, dependable design. You have high availability of parts at affordable prices, and the techniques required to service and maintain and repair the vehicle are not specialized. It's a recipe for a very good ownership experience, particularly in the context of vintage vehicles. Now, the other question I'm asked all the time relates to power and performance. How fast are they? How fast do they accelerate? What's the maximum cruising speed on the highway? These kind of things. There is quite a bit of variation here from model to model, transmission to transmission, and engine to engine. But the short answer is that if you're buying a Series Land Rover and you think you're going to be driving on the highway at high speeds quite often, it is not a good vehicle for you. Cruising at modern highway speeds on a super freeway is not something that was part of the original Land Rover design brief, and it's just not something they're ever going to be good at. But will it drive with modern traffic on most roadways? Absolutely. It accelerates perfectly reasonably for modern roads. You won't be holding people up on normal around town driving or secondary roads. And they are technically highway capable, although a short geared model is going to be quite a liability on the highway. But will a Series Land Rover keep up with traffic on most modern roadways? Yes, absolutely. It accelerates perfectly adequately, leisurely but adequately, and in conjunction with the inherent reliability of the truck, it makes it a very usable, occasional use vehicle, an adventure vehicle, which is what it was designed to be. Running to the beach, running around town, going exploring, taking a fishing trip or a camping trip, running up into the mountains with your kids. They are reliable, usable, rugged, and perfectly acceptable in terms of how they perform. I have found when I'm driving Series Land Rovers around, and I do a lot, that after a while I cease to be aware how fast I'm going or care. There is something about the experience of driving a Series Land Rover that takes away the pressure of being concerned about how fast you're going. I end up going as fast as the vehicle feels comfortable going, and I'm fine with that speed. Frankly, you really wouldn't want to be going super fast in a Series Land Rover, because this gets to the next topic, which is driving dynamics and refinement. A Series Land Rover is a fundamentally unrefined agricultural vehicle. And by that I mean they are comparatively loud, rough, bouncy, with controls that use a lot of effort and have a lot of travel to them. The steering is relatively heavy at low speeds and a little bit vague at higher speeds. The brakes are a little wooden without a ton of feel. The gear shift is a long, notchy throw from gear to gear. This is very different from most other vehicles of the period, but it's something that adds to the sense of occasion driving it. And there is an effort required to drive a series truck. There's no question about that, but this is all part of the experience. And I think judging a Series Land Rover by modern standards of refinement or performance misses the point of owning a Series Land Rover to begin with, which is breaking away from those modern confines of performance and scheduling and just laughing yourself silly as you bounce along in an extraordinarily enjoyable and involving vehicle to be in. Because these are not vehicles for people who are wound too tight. These are vehicles for people who are rogues and raconteurs and bon vivants. If you see adventure in the world around you and you bake it into every component of your life, you are going to love a Series Land Rover. If you find yourself constantly irritated by minutia, you probably won't. But if you think you might be a Series Land Rover kind of person, then they are inherently reliable, relatively easy and affordable to service, very simple to work on, and perfectly usable in a modern context. So I don't know, I hope that puts a little bit of a framework on the subject. Leave me comments down below. Tell me what your dream series truck would look like. And if you want to build one for yourself, obviously contact me. It's an incredibly enjoyable experience picking paint colors and interior materials and other details and just coming up with the series truck that you've dreamed about. You can do that through my website, autologymotors.com. Also follow me on Instagram. We post a lot of images and videos on there of the trucks we're working on and some of the things we have here in stock. And please like and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to try to bring you more videos answering common questions that I get here at Autology Motors. So thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.